Good afternoon, everyone. We'll start off with a customary data breach joke. So data breach walks into a bar. The bartender goes, "Hey you, we don't serve data breaches here. This bar was given to me by my dear old daddy, and he didn't serve data breaches, and neither do I." To which the data breach replies, "Well, actually I'm a health data breach, so I'm not just any normal data breach, and actually, he's not your real daddy." So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about breach notification in Malaysia. And it sounds like a very serious talk, so I just wanted to make it a little bit more fun. So I'm going to basically structure this talk like a story, and the title of the story is The Perils of Breach Notification. But before that, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Keith. I have no security credentials. I don't work in security, either in the past or the present. I do, however, work in IT. I'm an architect for a company here in Singapore. They don't know I'm here, so, don't tell them. But basically what I do for a living is I build stuff. I build IT systems, not build buildings architect. And today's story is about something I built. At the end of last year, I built a breach notification website. It's called SayaKenaHack. This is it right there. It's built for Malaysians. And today's, I wanted to walk through the story in 5 parts. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the background of the breach. Especially if you're not Malaysian, you probably don't know about the breach, so I just want to cover that. How I got the data, how I built the site, the response that the site got, both from the users, as well as the media, and even the government. And finally, sort of round it up with some conclusions, right? So let's just get straight to it. So the background of the breach. So on the 19th of October, I get a call from a friend. He says that, "Keith, Lowyat.net, this very popular forum in Malaysia, reported a big data breach. Have you looked at it?" And I said, "No, well, I'll take a look." And sure enough, if we went to Lowyat.net, this appeared on their page. The personal data of millions of Malaysians are for sale. Source of breach still unknown. This is it's a really good headline. It's got the right amount of mystery, right amount of urgency, right amount of seriousness. But effectively, if you read the article, what it would say is someone had come to the forum. Someone was trying to sell the personal data, and they were selling sort of like a combo list of data. So they were selling data from a job-seeking website called jobstreet.com, a couple of medical associations, and data from all Malaysian telcos. So Malaysia has 3 big telcos, Maxis, Celcom, Digi, and we have about 12 or so smaller telcos. We call them virtual network operators. And this person who was selling this data said they had data on all of them. Now, Lowyat took down the original ad. Of course, they have to. But you could sort of search for it, load the Google Cache version, and from the Google Cache version, look at the sample data that was up for grabs. So this guy who was selling it was actually saying, well, here's some sample data just to prove that I actually have this data. And you can look at the sample data and quite easily verify it with some open source intelligence that the data looks legitimate. Now, shortly after Lowyat made this claim and made this report, the MCMC, this is the local regulator in the country, told them to take it down. Now, the MCMC is similar to the FCC in the US, IMDA, I think here in Singapore. It's basically a regulator not just of ISPs and telcos, but like a content regulator as well. So this is a regulator telling a media company to take down a report of a data breach. Now, the next day, they said, well, no, it was a misunderstanding. Lowyat got permission to re-upload the article, and that seemed to be it. But 10 days later, on the 30th of October, Lowyat make a big expose. They say they went online and they found the data, not just the sample data, but the full data set that this guy was offering up for sale. He was offering up for sale for roughly 1 Bitcoin, by the way. So that was, at that point in time, about 40,000 ringgit, I think, maybe even more. But the point is that they claim they found all of it. 46.2 million records of mobile phone numbers from 2014. If you have a mobile phone number or had a mobile phone number registered in Malaysia in 2014, doesn't matter whether you're a citizen or not a citizen, your data is in this breach. At the very least, we have your IC number, that's your Malaysian identification number if you're Malaysian, or your passport number or some other registration number, and the phone number. We also will have probably your name and address, maybe local address in Malaysia, as well as your IMSI and your IMA. At the very least, we have that. Some telcos had more, some telcos had less. Now, this is a really big pile of data that's up there, easily downloadable for everyone. So I decided, well, let's see what we can do. Let's try to make a breach notification website. Now, the first thing you got to do is you got to get the data. So how do you get the data? We had this talk in the morning. It's a great talk. Well, you go to the dark web, right? So I didn't know anything of the dark web. I don't work in security. So you go online and you search, dark web search engine or dark web directory or dark web this or dark web that, and you go to the dark web and there's .onion links and you try to find this. Now the dark web, at least from my experience, was like, the internet back in the 90s. The links were slow, they didn't work, some didn't load, all that kind of crap. And while I did find some breach sites with some breach data, I couldn't find this one specific data set that I wanted. But then, on the 3rd of November, a website, a forum on a clear web site, most of you in this room probably know this forum, posted something like this. Hello all, I'm sharing the mobile number data, first shared on a hidden service. My friend got this database and gave it to me. It has multiple files. And then it enumerates all the files from all the different telcos, from all of these medical associations, and from all these job-seeking websites. This isn't an actual code, by the way, because the website in question, the forum in question, is actually on the clear web. The site's indexed by Google. If I gave you the actual code, you could just pump that into Google and go to the actual post that has the data. But even then, I'm quite sure that everyone in this room, everyone at this conference, within 10 minutes of Google can find this data. Now, if you go to the website, you download it from a mega link, you get, roughly 3.5 gigs of data. And the one thing, if we go a little bit off tangent, the one thing interesting about the data, of course, it's all legitimate, it's all there, but the one thing about the data was that it was password protected and encrypted. Now, why would anyone do this, particularly when the password is given in the same post as the link to the data? Until you realize the password looks something like this. Well, it's a mask, but it's basically a .onion link. And it's quite cool because this is the way these dark web websites sort of keep the attribution of the files that came from them. So if you have a dark web website and you're dealing with data breaches and you got this big data breach, you would encrypt it with your .onion link. And even though someone might download it and re-upload it in another forum, and someone might do the same, you lose track of the data. But all these guys who are downloading, they're not going to decrypt it, decompress it and then recompress it again. They're just going to take the same file you gave them and upload it somewhere else. And that way, the password of the zip acts like a backlink to your hidden service, which is an interesting use of a zip password. But then once you got that, decrypt the file, 3.5 gigs, all of this data, it becomes much, much larger after you decrypt it. Then you got all of this data. You got to be really, really responsible with the data, right? Because this is like people's real data, it's legitimate data breach data. You got to be responsible for yourself as well as for the victims. You could spin up a VM and do that kind of thing. What you don't want to do is just store it in a regular folder and call it something like, HackEnaHack, right? You want to have something more secure than that, okay? We can laugh, but he's Australian, he won't go to jail. So now you got the data. Second part is you got to build the site itself. Now this is my wheelhouse, right? I'm an architect. I build sites for a living. But there are some, let's say, functional questions you still have to answer first. So what are the first functional questions? Well, this is how the website would roughly look, right? It looks like a Google search engine. The user comes, gives you some input data, gets back some output data, and based on the output, can determine whether or not they're in the breach. We'll take it up one at a time. Input first. What can you use as the input data? Remember the 6 data elements. These are all different data files from different telcos, and they all have different formats, different field names, etc. But they all have roughly 6 common fields in question, right? Everyone's got the name and the IC, they got the address, they got their phone number, of course, they got the IMSI and the IMEI. Now, IMSI and IMEI you can't really use because people don't really know the IMSI and IMEI, at least most normal people don't know. And even I don't know the IMSI and IMEI I had in 2014. That's like 3 Android phones and 2 SIM cards ago. So, you can't really use IMSI and IMEI. Names and addresses, they are not really good to query on. And so what you're left with is mobile number or IC number. Very unique numbers, very nice numbers. You can use either of them. And I chose to use IC numbers, and we'll get to that in a bit. But when you get to output data, that's much, much harder. Because if you go to a website like Have I Been Pwned, everybody knows Have I Been Pwned, right? It's this phenomenal breach notification website. You come in, you enter your email address, and the service tells you, yep, you're in the Adobe breach, you're in the MySpace breach, LinkedIn breach, etc. But there's a couple of things different. So first of all, Have I Been Pwned, run by Troy Hunt, he has, even though he didn't start with it, but he has right now a tremendous amount of reputation and credibility, right? Governments use him, law enforcement agencies use him, etc. So you can trust the guy. And secondly, he's got lots and lots of breaches that he has accumulated over time. So even if you didn't trust Troy Hunt, you come to the website, you type your email address, It tells you you're part of these 10 breaches, and you can sort of correlate, yep, I subscribed to this service 10 years ago and this service, and the dates and the services match up. Now, I don't have credibility. I don't have reputation, and I only have one breach, which impacts the whole country, by the way. 46.2 million records. Malaysia only has 30 million people. So if you came to the website and you entered either your mobile number or an IC number, and all I gave you back was a flag, yep, you're in the breach, yep, you're in the breach, the site would be indistinguishable from a scammy website that some guy, sprung up overnight. So how not to look like a scam? It's a difficult one, because the way I sort of solve this is that, okay, I got to prove to you that I have the data. I can't prove to you that I'm phishing your data. That's impossible. But I can at least prove to you that, yep, I got the data, and yep, you're in the breach. And the only way to do that is to give you some subset of the data from the breach back to you. So if you enter something like a key, a database key, and I have to give you back the record for that database to prove that, yep, you're in the breach and this is your record. But you can't give the plain text data. This is what happened in the Philippines, the COMMSEC breach, and the guys brought this breach notification website. You got to be a bit more responsible. And the sort of solution that I came up with was to use something called masking, right? So, for example, credit card numbers are pretty sensitive, so people don't print them out. But if you go to a physical store, swipe your card, and get a physical receipt, your card number's on that receipt. It's just masked. Usually, credit card numbers are 16 digits long, Visa, Master. The first 6 digits you may or may not mask. The middle 6 digits you have, and the 4 digits at the end, they always leave it in the clear. This is for troubleshooting purposes, so that you, looking at a receipt, can figure out which card you use, etc. And the masking helps to keep the attribution, helps to keep you know which card you use, but anybody picking a random credit card receipt off the street can't use it because they don't have the full card number. So the same concept we apply for phone numbers. A Malaysian mobile phone number looks like this. We apply some masking to make it look like that, and we get roughly 5 digits entropy. Right? It's just similar to what the minimum standard for PCI is. PCI says 6 digits of masking, but the last digit of a credit card is a checksum, so you only get 5-digit entropy. This is 5-digit entropy. It's kind of cool. So at the end, it's not a perfect solution, but it's what I sort of ended up with. You come to the website, you give me your IC number. Now, why not mobile number? Mobile numbers are a lot less sensitive, but also a lot more common. Everybody's part of this WhatsApp group with like 11 billion people on them, and your phone number is just pinging around everybody else, and then you can tie your phone number to your identity pretty easily. IC numbers are a lot more sensitive. They're a lot more secret as well. So I figured out that this was a better way of doing it, that someone comes into the site, enters their IC number, and gets back their mobile numbers. But they get it in masked form. And this way, you can sort of know that, yep, that looks like my phone number. It's got the same last 2 digits, without me further exposing you to harm. It took a very long time to just reach to this stage. The other thing is that I'm guessing the last 2 numbers are left unmasked. You can't mask too much as well, because you got to, prove to the person that you have the data. So if you have one number, there's a 1 in 100 chance I guessed that correctly. If you got another buddy and he's got one number and that's correct as well, that's a now 1 in 10,000 chance. That's a strike the lottery probability, So in 2 searches, you can go from, yeah, I don't know whether this SayaKenaHack thing is real, to, yep, pretty darn certain that this is legit. And that's, again, not the perfect solution, but I think it's pretty close to where it would be. So once you're there, building the site's easy, right? This is like a standard reference architecture for an AWS function. Won't go into it too much detail. We'll go to a more simple diagram. This is roughly how the site looks like. It's a standard serverless implementation. You got an S3 bucket serving out HTML and JavaScript. That JavaScript calls an API. That API connects to a database. Simple stuff. And then from here, you can do, sort of like figure out how it works and what can go wrong, right? Sort of like threat modeling in Crayon. The thing that I was primarily worried about wasn't that someone could come and dump the database. The database itself, there was masked at rest. So as an asset, it's pretty low value. You could go online and find it and download the full data set anyway. Why would you come and download my database? Or tampering and spoofing. It's very, very hard to tamper and spoof. The Lambda function in this case can only read the database, and in fact, it can only read 1 row of the database at any one time. The thing that I was particularly worried about was if someone comes and DDoSes the website. I'm not worried about, availability going down, but more like someone comes, DDoSes the website. The site doesn't go down, but the next day I get a huge bill from Amazon because AWS is serving up all of this traffic. Fortunately, it didn't happen, but when you spring up stuff like this, you got to be aware of all those kind of threats. Now, once you've done all of that, pick a domain name. I pick SayaKenaHack.com. If you are from Malaysia or you know Bahasa, this just means I got hacked.com. It's an homage to Have I Been Pwned. Maybe Troyan doesn't like it, but you know, what's that saying? Imitation is the best form of flattery, I guess. But once the site's built, all I have to do is launch it. So on the 12th of November, I posted this to my Facebook timeline, and I posted something to my Twitter timeline as well. Basically, I asked my friends, you know, can you go try the site? Tell me what you think. Tell me if the data is correct, etc. Right? Cool stuff. And, you know, it was launched. Now, what's the response? So shortly after, on the 13th of November, this was roughly what the analytics of the site was. 458 concurrent users, 13,000 plus users in one day. This is less than one day, actually. It's like 8 to 12 hours, something like that. So that's a pretty good thing. That's more than anything I built in my life had that kind of traffic. It's quite amazing. So what's next? Well, I worked with a friend of mine who works at a local English daily, one of the biggest English newspapers in the country. And we managed to get it not really on the front page, but a story in the front page and then another story in like 2-3 pages deep in the newspaper, but on the actual physical newspaper you get on the door. And, you know, front page news is always something to brag about. So this is it. Yeah. It's a screenshot of the screen, but I promise you, I swear that I don't live in Malaysia. I live in Singapore. I'm Malaysian, so I don't have a physical newspaper to show you, but you know, take my word for it. It was front page news. Now, what does front page news or mainstream media do to your traffic? Well, you go from 458 to roughly this. This is 1,963 concurrent users, 100,000+ users in like, you know, if you look at the timeline below, I launched it on the 12th. This is the 16th of November. It's 100,000 users at like 10 a.m. on the day it came out as front page news, right? Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, well, you know, Keith, you got the data, you built the site, yeah, great response, and it's on the front page news, all awesome stuff. What's so perilous about data breach notification? What's so perilous about this, right? Well, that, my friend, is coming now. See, on that same day, at around noon, I get a note from a friend of mine. He says that, Keith, I'm trying to access the site, site's jammed up. I don't mean to brag, but you know, I'm a pretty good architect. The volume that the site currently had was nowhere near what would jam it up. So I was left perplexed. It's very hard to troubleshoot an AWS instance on your mobile phone. So lunchtime, I took a trip back home. I opened up the laptop, tried to debug it, can't figure out what's going wrong. You know, working for me, on my laptop, on my iPad, on my iPhone, working for most people I know. Some people are reporting some issues. What's going on? Until someone sees this. Now, if you're not Malaysian, this takes some explanation, but look at the word at the bottom there, and let me enhance it for you. Notification. This website is not available in Malaysia as it violates the national laws. So this was blocked by the local regulator in Malaysia. Now, at this point, I'm worried about two things. Yeah. First of all, I'm worried about the abysmal language issue in my country because there is no variation of the sentence where the is grammatically correct. But second of all, I'm really, really worried about what's going to happen to me. It is effectively time to panic. Now, you may think this is prima donna. You may think, well, yeah, you know, blocked website doesn't equal going to jail. But okay, so let me explain to you what Malaysia at the end of 2017 looked like. It's not the same as it is now. We've got a new government. You can make fun of the prime minister now as long as it's not the current prime minister. But at the end of 2017, this guy had a blocked website. He was exiled somewhere in the UK, persona non grata in Malaysia. This guy had a blocked website. They shut down his whole business, shut it down, literally blocked the site, shut it down. Bad things happen to people with blocked websites. And now I was one of them. So, you know, I was worried, and this is the serious part. So I was really, really worried because, you know, this was a different country. You worry that you go back home and you land at the airport and they whisk you off to jail, just straight away whisk you off to jail, no questions asked. And in jail, you're there, my skinny body, in between two burly guys, and one guy's going, I killed a man and I robbed a bank, and what did you do? And I'd be like, well, I violated the Personal Data Protection Act. and maybe in jail that's awesome, but probably not. But on a serious note, and lame Chuck Norris memes aside, this was a very, very scary point in my life. And it got even more confusing because some of the reports, now most people, like the 99% of most support that you can see on Twitter or on Facebook, was pretty supportive. People wanted something like this. But there were some people who were critical, and that's par for the course when you do something like this, that's fine. But some people seem to take it a different way. For example, this guy says it's blocked because it's not right to manipulate the stolen data. It's like, what? Manipulate the data? Till today, I still don't understand, But where you would normally be confused, now you're confused, you're scared, you just launched this thing, so you're sleep deprived, you haven't slept for a long time, and, you're just not working on all four cylinders, you're wondering to yourself what's going to happen. So I took the decision shortly afterwards, on that same day, 16th of November, to shut down the site. So I told everybody, on the 20th of November, I'm going to shut down the site. You've got, 4 days to figure out how to bypass the breach. It's a simple DNS block. This is how most government censorship works. Most people either VPN or you just change your DNS to Google DNS or whatever, and you can bypass the block. But on the 20th of November, this little bit of code snippet hits. So basically, if you can read Python, it basically says at 11:55 p.m. Malaysia time on the 19th of November, the site doesn't even reach into the database anymore to get the records. It basically returns back status code 451, which, by the way, that is the recommended HTTP status code if your site is blocked by a government. So, if you ever get blocked by a government, HTTP status code 451, not 404, 451, right? So that, my friends, is the perils of data breach notification, at least in Malaysia. But that's the end of, at least for my part. The site's down now. It doesn't really give you any data, but that is the end of, let's say chapter 1, right? Because now we go to the conclusion. The more I think about it, right, the more I understand, and you got some distance in time now, so you can reflect on it without all the emotional baggage that it comes along with. So I've gone from thinking, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done it, to, yeah, I didn't do anything wrong, to where I am right now, well, I did something right. There's a huge difference in something, I didn't do anything wrong and I did something right. That's a different level of conviction, right? And right now I'm in this place because, well, if you look at this is the Google Analytics for my blog, not for SayaKenaHack, not for the breach notification site, for my blog. Because the breach notification site works like this. You come in, you enter the data, there's breach notification, and right at the bottom, you got a little link that says more info. Click on that link, you go to my blog. This one, 100,000 page views in one day. It basically, supersedes everything else on the blog. But 100,000 people came to that blog on that one day to get more info. Normal people, the people who don't come to, hacking conferences and security conferences, want more info. They want to understand, what does this breach mean? How do I protect myself? What I have to do? And the people at the time who were, you would say, entrusted or had the mandate to give them that more info were not doing it. Okay? So, I did it. Maybe it's not right. Maybe it's not 100% legal, but it isn't illegal anyway. That's for a judge and jury to decide. And until someone takes me to court, no one can actually say that it was an illegal thing to do. There are many, many exemptions in the PDPA. So that's kind of cool, right? Normal people want to know, I was trending with Miss World. You see, yeah, in fact, I was trending ahead of Miss World. So, it's me and then girls in bikinis. So, yeah. But this idea that people don't care isn't true. People do care. They want to know, right? And some of us who have the skills, I'm not saying very skillful, but the people who have the skills and the talent have a responsibility to help them understand. Now, this is the official media statement from the Personal Data Protection Agency requesting the MCMC to block the website, right? And basically, the MCMC, the regulator, acted on the request of the PDP Commission, the Personal Data Protection Commission. So Good Friday this year, Good Friday is a holiday in Singapore, it's not a holiday in Malaysia. I took a flight back home and I went here. This is the Personal Data Protection Agency of Malaysia. Now that is a very scary looking door. The thing is, you probably wanted to have glass so it looks nice. It looks like one of those doors in the back of a casino. They catch you cheating, they bring you into the door and you never come out. But I went there and I had this amazing conversation with the PDP commissioner. And I said, hi, my name is Rozario. Do you know who I am? And she said, who? What? So, SayaKenaHack, you must know this. No. And we had to explain to her, well, it turns out that they blocked the site not because they were angry, but because there were some complaints and they just acted on the complaint, right? So that wasn't anything serious. I wasn't really going to go to jail, but that is the real story, right? I met her. We had a really great conversation. I met her staff. I gave her a copy of a book, Ghosts in the Wires. Maybe you know that. And this, by the way, is a little tip. So if you ever meet a government official, there's always going to be many layers of people between you and them. It's going to be like, okay, you don't have to send the email, we'll call you, they'll call them, etc. But if you bring a book, you bring something physical, you write a note in the book, that bypasses all of them and goes straight to the biggest person in the room, right? So if you ever wanted to communicate that way, bringing a book to meet a government official and giving them a book, that's great. That helps do that most. But the point is, and I got some time left, but the point is basically, SayaKenaHack, that part of the story is over, but it's still a work in progress. I'm still trying to get breach notification up in Malaysia. I'm still trying to get the site unblocked. Maybe it won't get unblocked in its current form, but something somewhere to make breach notification in Malaysia actually official. And if you are in Malaysia and you want to help me out, reach out and we can see what we can do. And, that's what we're trying to work out on. So it's a work in progress. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Keith, for sharing your story with us. Do the crowd have any questions?
How much was your AWS bill in November?
Oh, $2. So Lambda, right? Lambda has 1 million gigabytes seconds every month, right? The Lambda function is only 128 megabytes, so Lambda is legit. So yes, good point. So the Lambda function, the site running itself costs about $1 every 100,000 views. So $2 for 200,000 views, something like that. But the real cost was loading the data into DynamoDB, right? Because it's 46 million rows, and if you spin up, 1,000 rows per second, 2,000 rows per second, that costs a bit. So that I think roughly about $30, $40, but the full cost of everything, domain plus the DynamoDB plus the AWS, under $60, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, are there any more questions?
Won't break the bank, man.
Was the loaded data already masked, or?
Yeah, so the data, the data you download, of course, is all clear, so you can see everybody's phone number. But the data in the DB is masked, and we do that for two reasons. I do that for two reasons. One is that so that's more secure, so that if you dump the data, you don't get anything of value. The database itself is pretty invaluable. And secondly, it's a performance thing, because if you mask it write it into the database, you don't have to mask it every time you query it out. So that saves a lot of cost as well. Yeah.
Okay, are there any further questions?
Cool.
Okay, if there are no more questions, please all do remember that Keith will be around some more. So if you think of anything, just go ahead and ask him.